All right, we're going to demo Orion. Here's the first of 4 demos. This is Fall Apart by Tanja. I'm going to start by playing a little bit of the track. On the left, we have all of the drums routed through a bus with Orion. On the right, these 2 yellow ones are the ones that actually made the mix, the parallel drums and the drum folder. I'm going to keep those muted, and then at some point we'll switch back and forth between them. Let's pull up the defaults and start working. Okay, A is definitely saturating. I hear a little bit of wideness. B starts to get a little bit flubby. It's a lot of kick saturation. Let's keep going. By the way, there are other videos going through each of these modules and kind of what they're doing. You can watch those to get a layout of the GUI and also know what's happening behind the hood. We're just doing audio examples today. I feel like A has a little bit of a slower attack time, letting a little bit more of the transient through. That's also just making it louder. This EQ, since they call it the harmonic EQ, is probably emulating some of Jason's settings on Spectre. You see him use Spectre a lot. This sounds good. I like the 100 Hertz boost on it. The rest of it, I don't really know yet. I haven't really decided on anything else yet. Alright, so now we can compare Orion to what I actually had in the song. So when I hit Shift M, it'll switch back and forth. Whichever one is unmuted is what we're listening to. So let's listen to this switch with everything in except vocals. This is kind of the way that I demo all my plugins, is I demo what the plugin will do versus what I already do. And this is what I was going to do if I never owned Orion, so I'll compare it to, like, if I owned Orion, how would it sound different? So that's what we're going to do for all of them. I feel like Orion is missing some of like the high-endy stuff. So they sound super different in the low end. Let's pull up a clipper on the drum and bass bus. We'll mute the bass and the percussion. So the only thing that we're going to be metering through this bus is either the combination of my mix bus, of my drum bus and the parallel drum bus versus Orion. I want to see where they're peaking. See if we're like getting crazy headroom with one or the other now that they're similarly balanced. So you can see we're just barely tapping the like tip of the waveform there. So we'll switch to the other one and see how it's looking. All right, yeah. So it is clipping more. We're gaining a little bit of headroom with Orion. The low end saturation is so much and I can't tell if it's good or not. Let's turn it off and maybe get low end from here. Let's listen to that with just the bass, actually. Yeah, I still feel like Orion's missing some of the high-endy stuff. I don't know. We'll see how it works on the next song. This is Coffin by Prime Society. We have the same sort of setup, Orion on one bus and then my drum bus on the other. I think way too often. So I'm curious, since this kick drum is already so saturated, in the mix after I'd printed everything. I'm curious to see kind of what the saturation will do to the low end. This 80 hertz harmonics thing sounds cooler on the snare than the kick. Like, check this out. If I just throw this on the... If I were to just throw this straight on the snare and turn off Orion. That's fat. Alright, back to Orion on the drum bus. Interesting. Let's see how that lives with the bass. Yeah, I feel like the kick loses its like chestiness, like that chest punch transient. Again, I like the 100 hertz on there. Let's bring in some of these parallels. I don't want more sub. The low, I can't even really hear what it's doing. Let's bring up these two. Let's compare that with the original drum bus and everything but vocals. Alright, let's see where these two are peaking. Alright, so with Orion, we're gaining 0.9 dB of headroom on the drums. Curious if I just, so 0.9 would be negative 9.1. Let's just clip an extra 0.9 on here. It's not really doing anything I can't do on this track. If anything, I'm learning from that 100 hertz boost that maybe I should just set up like a 100 hertz boost saturated with Spectre on the drum bus, because I like what it's doing most of the time. Everything else I'm not totally sold on. Alright, this one is Ask Me to Dance by Pete Hollis, also another one that I mixed, and let's work on this one.
I should have known the start was when you
C sounds fat. It's also louder, so I compensated more. It sounds pretty cool. Maybe. It's hard to tell without the rest of the mix in, but we'll see. When it's level matched, you can really hear how much it's eating up like the snare slap, like the snare transient upper stuff. So let's try to EQ some of that back in. It's probably more the 3K band. Alright, let's start to compare that with the original drum bus. So I'm losing some of the snare punch on here, so let's add in some 100. Alright, let's see where both of these are peaking at, see what's... So we're gaining like a little bit less than a dB of headroom or so. So Orion sounds fatter to me, but it's probably just because of that 100 hertz thing. Let's just do this. I don't know how I feel about it. We'll see. So my final thoughts are that I should probably put a little bit more 100 hertz maybe in my own drums. That's what I was hearing in the plugin, at least. I liked that part of it. I think the kick saturation can change the sounds a lot. It's really aggressive, so maybe if you end up mixing through it and that's the original intention, then you could mix into it in a certain way to make that work. I think the kick saturation's a lot, and for a lot of drums might change the sound a little too much for the producers that are super locked in and honed in on the drum sounds that they delivered to you as a mixer. What was next? The compression. Oh no, the low end saturation. Also pretty cool on snare. Might use it on snare. It was doing a cool thing in Fall Apart on the 50 hertz thing. It's not something that I would specifically buy a whole plugin for, that at least. The compression wasn't exaggerated. I have a lot of drum bus compressors that I already like, so I'm definitely not buying it for that. Lift, I'm not really sure what it was doing, but it was saturating snares in a way that was like kind of cool. Also, at every step, it just gets like louder and louder and louder. You guys probably saw at the end I was trimming down like 9 or 10 dB. What was next? Then it's like this the Spectre-like saturation EQ. Cool, but I also own Spectre, and I would have more options and more flexibility. And then the parallels were cool. My parallel kind of sounded like loud on there. A combination of loud and grit, because there's also a bunch of saturation on mine. Grit was cool. It added a cool like knock to kick drums and that like 600 to 1K thing. But yeah, let me know what you guys heard, if any of these examples stood out to you as like definitely reasons to buy it or definitely reasons to not. And I hope this was a helpful sound example and demo for Orion. So cool.